Certainly is. At least 300 people have been arrested by the police in the New York area during the last 3 weeks.
Why?
Apparently, it's part of an overall nationwide program to drive homosexuals back underground now that we're coming out.
You're coming out since when?
All over the past year, homosexuals have been coming out into public, refusing to hide in the closets, as we say.
What do you want the police to do?
We want them off our backs. We want them to stop harassing us, stop pushing us around.
Little is known about the activist groups of the 1920s because they had to work in hiding in order to avoid persecution. Founded in Chicago in 1924, one of the best documented groups is Henry Gerber's Society for Human Rights. However, this group was disbanded within a few months due to police pressure. The Henry Gerber House, where they held meetings, is now a National Historic Landmark.
And you're Gladys Bentley, is that right?
Yes.
I'm sorry to have neglected you, Gladys, but it isn't often we get a charming lad from Guatemala.
Right.
Now, where are you from, Glad?
I'm from Port of Spain, Trinidad.
Do you have a job, Gladys?
Yes, I'm an entertainer. I sing and play for it.
In 1948, Alfred Kinsey released his book Sexual Behavior in a Human Female. He is also known for his creation of the Kinsey scale, which introduces human sexuality as a spectrum instead of a binary.
There are a lot of kids here. And if we catch you with a homosexual, the rest of your life will be a living hell. And you will be caught.
In 1969, a hotspot for LGBTQ people to go and socialize was the Stonewall Inn, an underground gay bar. In the middle of the night one night, the police raided the bar. They were justified in doing so as it was serving liquor without a license, and the crowd looked on quietly as the employees were led into the cop car. However, led 3 drag queens and a lesbian into the cop car. The crowd became violent, throwing bottles at the police. This incident led to days of protests and riots in the streets, as well as tension between police and LGBTQ community. It is also seen as the fuel that would lead to the uprising of the gay rights movement. The Gay Liberation Front was a series of gay rights activist groups that founded in 1969 directly after the Stonewall riots. They were a radical group advocating for the sexual liberation of all people and arguing that heterosexuality was a result of cultural inhibition. However, not everyone agreed with the Gay Liberation Front. The Gay Activists Alliance was formed almost 6 months after the Stonewall riots by dissident members of the Gay Liberation Front. What was your involvement in gay rights activism in the 70s?
I was at work, and I was having a partner that happened to be the same sex I was. And that made it much easier for me at work. I didn't have to hide what I was doing or hide who I was. And that in the late 70s and early 80s, I participated in a community effort to educate people about AIDS. In the early years, it wasn't called AIDS. It was called GRID, G-R-I-D.
Right, yeah.
Related something. And I worked for a community group that ran a phone bank that took citizens' calls 7 days a week and answered questions about AIDS or what the symptoms were.
Do you have any specific memories of any particular challenges that you faced doing that work?
Yeah, one of the biggest challenges, people would want to know what the symptoms of AIDS were. And of course, AIDS didn't have any symptoms. AIDS was a conglomeration of immunosuppressant, opportunistic infections, and there was no single thing that you could point to and say, if you have these symptoms, you probably have AIDS. And people found that very hard to understand because we were used to bacterial infections we could point to and say, this is the problem and this is the cure. And AIDS was a completely different. Also in the newspaper, I believe it may have been in the gay-oriented newspaper at the time called the Front Page, that asked for volunteers, and I called them volunteers. There's not anybody of that time that didn't lose a number of very close friends. And I think that most of the people now in this century, in these couple of decades, don't realize exactly how harsh that was and exactly how harsh AIDS affected all.
Although treatment for AIDS has gotten a lot better and people can now live for a long time after contracting AIDS, the stigma has not completely gone away.